trying to make out that tax avoidance is an issue that concerns us, and by us I mean the working class. Yes, if a member of the working class can get away with tax avoidance, all the good to them. But as far as tax avoidance for the capitalist class is concerned, it's not a working class issue. Right? Even if any government was capable of bringing in, say, 95% of the taxes, even if they had all that amount of tax in, right, it would not make one fundamental difference to the position of the working class. They would still be exploited for a profit, right? And all that tax would be done, all the government would do with that tax is return it back in, right, in some shape or investment, right, share it back out with white elephants like they had for the Olympics with that O2 stadium, whatever it is, right, churn it back out, give it to them, right, in some shape or form, so that the profits are returned over and over again. That's all the tax system is about, right? It's a generalization, so there is a redistribution of surplus from one company to another to ensure that there is some kind of even balance in the capitalist system. That is not our concern. Not our concern one little bit.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Yes?
Complete non sequitur, Brian. I didn't follow that. I see no logical connection between those last two statements. That the taxation is just a means of balancing payments from one company to another. That's simply
rebalancing.
That makes absolutely no sense to me.
Well, the
taxation pays for our education and our health.
Yeah,
it's the public subsidies that
yeah.
poor people.
I just want
to
bring up, sorry Brian, I just want to bring up the fact that I brought down the idea of vanity projects whilst we're in such an unequal society. So HS2 they've planned is going to cost something like 80 billion. And under a green economy and under a green government, we wouldn't be having that. And that 80 billion would then be channeled back into the NHS, back into public services that we so desperately need. And it is by tax avoidance that we could then afford to pay for everybody to go to university and reimburse anybody that has paid to go to university. It's just bringing back the money that has been lost through ineptitude in our government back to the working class people of our country that so desperately need it.
I'm still not following you, Brian.
Right, yeah.
Surely, because I work for the public sector, so I'm paid by taxation, and
yeah.
I'm a company and exploited in
right.
a company. I
right.
don't feel exploited.
Right.
And, well, sometimes I
when I say of a way of rebalancing the books, right? The government takes in taxation. It then redistributes that taxation by, like you said, in the NHS, which ends up in other companies eventually, right? Or,
but it doesn't stop.
So can I just finish, right?
But you
or
made a fall already. You said it ends up. Money doesn't end up. It flows. It doesn't stop anywhere. It flows.
I'm not.
If it goes to the company, they spend it on their employees.
That's what I'm trying to explain. Like the taxation system is there to ensure that the money flows.
Well, that's just a contradiction of what you just said.
No, it's absolutely a contradiction.
No, to end up, flow doesn't end. To my mind, I may be misunderstanding you, but the word flow and the word end are contradictory. You can't have a flow that ends because then it ceases to flow.
All right, I'll agree with you that my use of language, right, is inappropriate, right? And yes,
okay.
I go along with you
on that point of consensus, let's move.
To my mind, taxation can be used for good and for bad. I agree with you that, in general, I agree with you, but in particular, I think that, well, taxation is used to pay my wage, and I don't feel exploited nor exploiting. And, they pay for the NHS and it pays for the university. That doesn't seem consistent with your argument.
Okay, well, you had a moment of consensus there for a minute. Let's go on. Howard.
Can I carry on with this issue of tax?
You can, yeah.
I mean, as the the friend with the delightful little baby said there, a cat. Tax does pay for things. Tax is used to pay for the education system, for the health service and so on, and some parties and some governments will use more of that to pay for these things which most people find beneficial in one way or the other. Absolutely true. But the reality is it doesn't change the basic way society is organised. The way society is organised is that the vast majority of people have got to find an employer to employ them in order to live. And some people manage not too badly and survive reasonably well. Some don't. A hell of a lot are very, very badly off indeed. And it's not the best way to run society. The best way to run society is to use the resources we've got for people to be able to take according to their ability and give according to their needs. It's not what happens at the moment. And all these sort of things like taxation and somebody, I think Ashley, you mentioned the fact that capitalism has produced an abundance of wealth but can't distribute it. These are sort of relatively minor issues. They're sort of excrescences on the top of things. They don't actually go deep down to the fundamental problem of how do you organise society in a way that doesn't constantly give rise to all these conflicts that we get. And you know, I have to agree with Brian. Well, I would, wouldn't I? But the only way we can do this is by having a different mindset, thinking about a society in which we can organise ourselves democratically. And I don't just mean by voting every 5 years for a political party. I mean on a day-to-day basis. We're supposed to live in a democracy. Every day, if we go into work and have got a job, it's a dictatorship, isn't it? Somebody is telling us what to do and how to do it. We may have a certain amount of freedom within that, but nevertheless, you know, there's no democracy there. The vast majority of our lives is passed in an environment that isn't democratic. What we're suggesting is a society in which the whole of the environment on a day-to-day basis is democratic. And you can only get that in a society without buying and selling. You can only get that in a society without the market. You can only get that in a society in which people actually organise their own activity on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you.
We currently do have a policy, WR 116, I believe it is, that allows workers, if they're employed in a contract, and we're the only party currently advocating this, I'm sure the Socialist Party do as well, but we're the only one of the top 5 currently advocating this, that workers have the right to buy their company out between them and turn it into a workers' cooperative, hence stopping this dictatorship construct that you say. Obviously, there is a big line between the two parties here today, that one wishes to overturn the current system completely and one wishes to make immediate change for the better of everybody in society within the current system. And that's obviously something that we're going to keep doing that, but yeah.
Yes.
Was Brian and Ashley's position on inherited political office, namely monarchy and those...
You'd have to speak up again, can't you?
What's your position on inherited political positions like the monarchy and House of Lords and so on? Start with Ashley.
Right. Should
Yeah?
Start with Ashley.
Yeah, go on.
Well, we're an entirely Republican party. We wish to put... Well, I'm sure you saw the headlines, put the Queen in a council house. I'm sure it won't be that brutal. Got to build it first, but unfortunately our figures are a little bit shaky on that. We obviously, we're a Republican party. We wish to see the abolition of the monarchy. One of the massive counter-arguments that comes out of that is, they're a massive tourist attraction. But we would still have the history of, the monarchy attached to us. If we didn't have the monarchy, we could open Buckingham Palace, for example. People could walk around. You could start generating money that way. And a lot of people don't actually come from foreign places just for the monarchy. They come for our way of life, our culture, our different way of doing things that we've always had on this little island. And I really believe that the way in which we can have this purely democratic state is by getting rid of the monarchy, getting rid of the House of Lords, for example, needs to be a directly proportional representation, second chamber, where people have a voice. Turn it into a Senate, for example.
Brian.
Well, like I said in my talk, a socialist society is a classless society. There's no room for parasites. Right, they've gone. Once and for all, they're gone. All types of parasitism is gone. And that includes not just the monarchies, right, but also presidents as well. Because once you get rid of the monarchy and you replace it with a republic and put a president in his place, all you've done is replace one parasite with another parasite. That's all you've done. You have moved slightly forward, right, granted, but a very, very tiny step. The Socialist Party wants to take a far, far bigger step. Get rid of all the parasites. In short, get rid of the conditions that breeds the parasites. Once you get rid of the conditions and change the environment, then there is no possibility of parasites ever featuring again within a sharing society.
Thanks, Brian. Bob, you wanted to say something about this?
Yeah, I mean, I think the good thing about what we've heard from both Ashley and Brian, I mean, when there's the question of working class politics, and when you talk about the working class generally, obviously we're not just talking about the working class in this country, we're not just talking about the British working class, we're talking about, the term generically is the working class across Europe and indeed the world. Yeah. If you're talking about class politics in those terms, then the question of immigration comes up, okay, and the question of the free movement of labour. Okay, can you definitely, Ashley, give your opinion on the free movement of labour as a principle? All right, can I hear your opinions on that first? And secondly, when it comes to Republican politics and the question of the money, I can't remember the comrade who's at the back giving up the leaflet. One thing that has struck me in British politics, particularly since the collapse of the USSR and the idea of socialism disintegrating, I mean, it's not catch politics generally these days. This depoliticization that people have in society at the moment with politics. And one of the reasons I think of that is that, well, you know, if MPs are on 50, 60, 70,000 pound plus, okay, is that they detach from ordinary people's lives. If you get elected into Parliament, can you tell me what wage you get, please?
Okay, I have made a statement on my Facebook campaign page, and it's I count that as I've produced it, therefore I will stick by it. I will take £40,000 and no more.
How did you get to that figure?
Because I believe that, I mean, with the average income of Britain, 27.5, I believe that I should take that, and then I should take 12.5 more as my expenses to get to and from Westminster, because to be honest, with our current rail system, it's bloody expensive. So I'd take that much more, and obviously as an MP, I wouldn't see the need to stay over in Westminster. You could quite easily come back, etc., on a daily basis. And the first question was about immigration, free movement of labour. Personally, I am all for free movement of labour and for immigration. For example, I think the main issues that come about regards immigration is, oh, it's overcrowded, oh, there's too much job competition, oh, our schools and hospitals are overcrowded, and these are the main arguments, with the net migration to Britain being slightly higher. That's not immigration's fault. That's mismanagement of policy in our government. So what I would say is we need a form of pride, the fact that people want to come to this country and want to work for our system, but also we then need to make sure that places like recruitment agencies aren't paying foreign workers less. We need to make sure that everyone is paid a living wage. Just because, recruitment agents, just because employers think they can get away with it because £4.50 an hour is significantly higher than you'd be paid in Poland, for example, it shouldn't happen, because we are under a British system here. and you should pay everybody exactly the same. Migration and immigration brings something like 22 billion to the UK economy every year. 13 billion of that, I believe, is through foreign students. The rest of which is money made by foreign workers working in this country. And if we suddenly say no more free movement of labour, we'll probably put ourselves in quite a sticky position, because we would have nobody to do the jobs that a lot of individuals see themselves as above now. For one, I don't. I mean, I work for minimum wage, sometimes as much as 50 hours a week, sometimes as little as 5. You know, it's that on a 0-hour contract. But it needs to be a more equal society, and everybody needs to be paid the same. And free movement of labour, yes.
Thank you. Brian, do you want to say something about immigration?
Well, not just immigration. It was if I was to take a seat as well, and what I would claim, I'd claim the living wage. And that's it, right, plus expenses, right. Certainly can't afford the run around that parliamentary work takes, right. But I could exist on a living wage quite easily. Immigration, yes, we're all immigrants. There's no getting away from it. We are all immigrants. And the reason why you either immigrated to this country recently or your forefathers immigrated to this country was economic reasons. Majority of them were looking for a job. Right. That's why they come to this country. In a social society, the free movement of labour will be there for everybody to take advantage of it, if they so wish. But remember this, the present economic drive for that free movement of labour, or for the illegal movement, in many cases, of labour, and thousands of people dying through it every year. 3,000 in the Med alone last year. Don't know how many so far this year. Right? But will no longer be there. That drive won't be there. In fact, the opposite drive will be there. Because people will be able to turn around and employ their potential and initiative in their own area, to improve their own area. They'll have no reason to move great distances looking for work, when there is work available for them to do within their own environment and within their own community, etc. So, the sooner we get a social society, the sooner the big issue on the free movement of labour is solved. That's it.
Point of information on something actually said, is that possible?
Yes, Howard,
Point
quickly.
of information, the 27,000 average wage,
Yeah.
I know it's the official figure, but it's massive, it's well known to be
Well
massively inflated.
Oh yeah.
Massively inflated. It's, in fact, the average wage is much less than that, nor does it take into account, even the way it's calculated, fails to take into account that people who are unemployed and are on sort of £72 a week or something, or have had even the £72 a week removed, or on nothing at all. So, you know, if you're going to use £27,000 as a yardstick, so take it with a pinch of salt.
Well off.
Yeah.
Average earnings, sorry. That's average earnings, is how much you earn, it's not. But
Yeah.
I had a question for you. So we've heard a lot about this sort of socialist vision, about this homogenous utopia where there is only one class. I was wondering what your actual thoughts were for implementation. I mean, obviously you're standing for Parliament. Say your party gains an overall majority. What exactly are you going to do about, say, the Troika, the IMF, the World Bank, the European Bank? I mean, how exactly are you going to implement this revolution within the context of a global society?
Right. What you're asking is how social society is going to come about, right?
Well, yeah.
That's what and you're envisaging it within a purely British context, right?
I know it sounds really rude, but if we all went down to the council offices and spoke to our councillors every day, every week, and we lobbied the council, they would change their policies. It's a participative democracy. If we engage with the political process, we change things.
Yeah, I'm not disputing that. Yes, that changes can come about. But let's please understand that them changes can only come about within the framework of capitalism. Ashley admitted it. Right? Now, to your question,
The framework of capitalism, I mean, we don't live in a purely capitalist society. There is a public sector. It's much more nuanced than that. I think it's a bit reductive to say it's just, oh, there's just the employer and the worker is a wage slave to the employer. I mean, I'm just wondering how you would actually practically implement.
You can't divide the state machinery, the political system, away from the capitalist system. They go together. They've chosen bed pals, right? The political system, right, and the capitalist system go together. Okay. The political system requires the state, as much as the capitalist requires the state as well, to redistribute the taxes. Okay, right? So, right now. Sorry, right? You're jumping along now, and you're shoving further questions at me, and I haven't even had time to answer your first question. Right? Yeah. So can I answer your first question first? Right? How does socialism come about when you got the strikers and all the rest of it, right, up against a social society being introduced in Britain? That's basically your question. Right. Okay. Right. Now, socialism is an idea. Right? It's an idea. And all ideas are dynamic. You cannot expect the socialist idea, right, to breed in isolation purely within Britain. It's a global idea. So if we came to a situation where there is a big possibility of a socialist majority of delegates getting into Parliament, we would expect to see a reflection elsewhere on the globe as well, especially in the industrial countries, right? There will be other people in the industrial countries turning around saying, yes, they're going for it, right? We know they're going to get it, right? Once they've got it, we're going to get it as well. And we're going to support them. And it works both ways, right? So it won't be in isolation. Now, right, the possibility arises, yes, that there's a hang-up on this idea developing, right? That's what you're into now. Yeah. Yeah, right. In other words, there's not that flow, that dynamic flow, right, of systems analysis and all the rest of it, right, coming through, right, in regards to the question of social evolution, right? Yes, there is that possibility. How it is handled, I can't say, right? Because it depends on circumstances that I can only speculate on. I can't say anything else, right? In other words, the people at the time will have to decide for themselves how to handle that overhang of socialist ideas evolving around the globe evenly.
Thanks, Brian. Let Ashley comment and then you can come in again if you like.
I think we've found the crux of the big division and the big problem, therefore, with traditional socialism. The fact that it relies on at least 80% support from the population, the fact that it would have to, be enacted by that many people, and really, what the stance we're taking is, look, we need to act now. We need to make it better now because it's a mess. And to be honest, with the exploitation of so many people in this country, 2 million living in comparative poverty at the moment, to wait for this socialist, not revolution, because obviously you've said it can be enacted through the ballot box, but to wait for this socialist alternative to arise could take so long, it'd be too late, and the capitalist system would be ingrained so much further that it would just never happen. And we've seen a left wing, a far left party seize hold in Greece. But neighbouring countries haven't suddenly swung left. There is not this toppling of one system goes to socialism, therefore Albania goes. It hasn't happened. And in fact, in Britain, we've had, Syriza published in our news, we've had this Greek coalition published in our news so regularly, you'd expect, oh, brilliant, I'm sure maybe Labour, maybe the Socialist Party, maybe Tusk, maybe they'll all start rising, maybe the Greens will start rising. Unconnectedly, the Greens have risen in popularity, but in fact, the Conservatives are now ahead in the polls. So, realistically, is it ever going to happen through the ballot box? I really don't think so. But I think that the Green Party have the solution for tomorrow to make things better. We've heard some brilliant ideas, and I agree with a lot of them. But I'm about getting the problems solved, and about getting the problems solved tomorrow, not about waiting for this consensus that the situation is dire.
Okay, did you want to respond to that, or...?
No, not really.
Okay, fine. We've got time for one more question, I think. Bob wants to speak for a second time. If there's somebody else who wants to ask a question, then... Okay, Bob.
Yeah, just to come back on what you should say, because I think it's quite an important point. I mean, I'm a communist. I'm a socialist. Right? I'm not in the SPGB, but I've been involved in communist politics and Labour Party politics for most of my adult life. And I don't think it is simply a question of ballot box socialism. Okay, I don't think it is simply a question of, well, there's the idea we can't do anything in between. Because if you look, if you look at a communist platform or a socialist platform in an election, I think it is important, fundamentally important for socialist politics to be put forward in order to advance to where socialism wants to get to. Okay, so it's like a means to an end rather than an end in themselves. So, to me, the idea of no tuition fees, anti-trade union laws, free movement of labour, no cuts, Republican politics, those are questions that socialists, right, or people who would claim to be socialists and radical Democrats should put before the electorate. Now, in a general election that's coming up over the next couple of months.
59
those
days.
are fundamental questions. And that's not about some abstract idea in the future, right? It's politics now, okay? Fundamental. So I think you're a little bit, you bent the stick a little bit too much in terms of where, I don't know, Brian can speak for himself, or where Brian was coming from, or where the idea of socialism is, because socialism to me is not this abstract idea, it's about living politics as well.
Oh yeah, I think maybe I've been slightly misinterpreted, but Brian said that he wants to go for this, and obviously the whole of the Socialist Party of Great Britain want to go for this idea of this utopian society where everything's even and there's no classes, etc. My stance is that, yeah, brilliant, but as you've said, we need to take steps to get there. Now, yeah. That's basically what I've just said. But I don't think it's the way in which the arguments come across tonight, possibly. Whereas I'm paving the steps through socialist policy, not doing the big jump, if that makes sense. But no, I agree with you. Basically, is what I'm saying in a very roundabout way.
Just one comment you got to make. If all the thousands and thousands of people who were members of the Greens, the left, came out with what the Socialist Party of Britain wanted, went for ownership of the bakery, then he would have got some reforms by now, probably. We would have had a movement. But there's so many people going this way, that way, on small issues. I don't think the Greens are going to get anything what you want. Policy, because it's going to cause if we did get the policy, it would cause a financial crisis. Global capitalism would react. Capital would go elsewhere, because the aim of the capitalist system is for profit.
Yeah.
Why put up with 5% profit year when you can get it 7% somewhere else? So it would cause, it would not get you policies through.
No, what I'm trying to say is the fact we need to make it better, today.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
And you're making the point that really, if all 58,000 members of the Green Party united under what?
And the so-called left.
Under what?
Then you would have had a proper movement.
Yeah. It's obviously we're an eco-socialist party, so obviously we've got two prongs of priority basically, and it becomes quite difficult to manage both. But I believe, what I've heard from conference over the last couple of days this weekend is that we are we are pursuing truly socialist policy, and everything I've said today is party policy, and we are campaigning for it. You know, the renationalisation of the railways, free healthcare for the elderly, free childcare, etc., all paid for by the state. And I think perhaps that we.
Where does the state get this money from?
Well, yeah, okay, well.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Hang on, let's keep this brief now, because both statements. But carry on.
Yeah.
Just make it.
So we're talking about, you know, bringing back all the money that's been taken through tax avoidance. We're talking about a progressive tax policy with higher tax rates for those that are earning more off the state, that kind of thing. We're talking about, well, basically our tax policy almost pays something like double than what it is currently. We're talking about our wealth tax. All of those things, taking money back off those that have got it laundered almost, with assets of over 3 million that they do not need, they are not using, that kind of thing. It's just sitting there because they've avoided and evaded tax in the past. Bring it back to those that actually need it.